damage is dealt to them.
But I do love what you said there, which is that Regieleki with those Electrowebs is certainly one way you can try to keep pace with that Tailwind. And Regieleki is going to be the naturally fastest Pokemon between these 12. And so right away as we get into our first game of this Top Cut match between Taran, Birdee, and Navjit Joshi, it is going to be that Landorus Incarnate next to the Regieleki for Navjit. And for Taran, we do have the Iron Hands and Urshifu.
Absolutely love to see the Regieleki on the field, already applying a lot of pressure with something like the Electroweb to just do some damage into both these Pokemon and lower their speed straight away. However, the Iron Hands has the utility to go for Fake Out, slow down the pace on Navjit's side.
Landorus is going to go ahead and run away from this one, sees the Iron Hands and Urshifu on the other side, and does not want to stick around and find out. But so it's going to be this Ogerpon Cornerstone that's going to take its place.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, it's got to take that Fake Out. It's got to break the sturdy ability that it has, and with this Volt Switch, at least Navjit's able to get a bit of a rotation through here and get some damage down to break the Focus Sash on this Urshifu.
A big ball position switch here for Navjit, and like you said, the sturdy's been broken on that Cornerstone Ogerpon. That could be very detrimental later in the game. Or right now, if Urshifu goes for the Wicked Blow, but it's not enough to be able to get the knockout. Ogerpon's going to be able to be here. Landorus does come back into the field here. I feel like it just didn't want to maybe take the potential double up because it is going to be applying a little bit of threatening pressure here. You could always go for that Sunstar Storm, get a bit of double damage on the field, and that's something Iron Hands will not appreciate.
Absolutely not, and it would definitely clean up the Urshifu as well. So a great call there, Lou. Unfortunately, we have to see whether or not it's actually going to hit its target to see if it can actually get those knockouts. But as you mentioned, Landorus being there is the absolute fiend versus this Iron Hand, so it's also going to make the pivot out. Whimsicott, a grass type, able to take those ground types just a little bit better. But it's the Ivy Cudgel that's going to slam into that slot. And the Sunstar Storm going into the Protect for now.
But will it connect into this Whimsicott? It does indeed find its mark and able to get the knockout. So Whimsicott comes in. You would think, yes, it's definitely the better Pokemon to take these kind of rock and ground type attacks, but no, it is down and out.
Yeah, Taran winced at that one, absolutely. Yeah. I think hoping that it would be able to withstand the double up there, or maybe not expecting the double up to go into that slot. Now you don't have that Tailwind available, you don't have the Encore either, and so it's going to be a little bit difficult for Taran to try to get ahead of things if this Regieleki comes back out for those Electrowebs.
I mean, taking a look here as well at what Taran has in the back, it's all kind of the Electro types. You've got Miraidon, you've got Iron Hands, so they're going to be able to resist a lot of what the Regieleki can throw its way, but you have to watch out for those speed tiers. If the Electro webs start coming through, that's where we're going to be dropping the speed and leaving them a little bit more vulnerable for some of Navjit's Pokemon to clean up in the back. There is that Calyrex Ice Rider potentially in the fourth and final slot for Navjit, and that can deal so much damage, particularly to the Miraidon if it is going to be on the field, and there it is.
Miraidon, though, as it enters the field, is going to set up that electric train thanks to the Hadron Engine ability. It's going to be boosting up its own attacks as well, but it's not going to do any damage to this Landorus if it is going to try to go for an Electro Drift or a Volt Switch, because it is going to be a ground type. So it's going to be a tough call. Do you try to, like Terra, go for the Dazzling Gleam, but then you're weak to the Sludge Bomb across the way?
I would, personally, I would go for the Terra, get the extra damage into Dazzling Gleam, get rid of the Ogerpon, and do significant damage to Landorus. Yes, you have to worry about the Sludge Bomb, but if Urshifu is able to get the edge on this Landorus and follow up with a Wicked Blow, potentially has the capability to get the knockout, so you don't have to worry about Sludge Bomb at all.
It would be nice because the Miraidon would pick up the Ogerpon first, and then you can guarantee that single target damage into the Landorus specifically without something like the Follow Me. But Taran doesn't want to stick around for that one either. Going to reserve that Urshifu for a bit later, knowing that Iron Hands does have the Assault Vest equipped, so it would be able to take a hit from this Landorus Incarnate just a little bit better. As it hits the field, you do see that this Quark Drive is going to activate to give this Iron Hands an attack boost.
Yeah, it's got the Assault Vest for the defense and the attack boost to be on the offense as well. So a lot of flexibility coming through from this Iron Hands, and that is exactly what Miraidon wants by its side. The Fake Out potential going into this next turn and ensuring that this Fairy Miraidon is going to be able to deal a huge amount of damage and stay on the field. But Rosemary, it's a Terrestrialization apiece.
It is a Terrestrialization apiece, and that's going to be the Landorus taking on the Terra Poison. One way to get around the Dazzling Gleams is to give yourself this defensive type, but it works both ways because it's also going to be boosting up the power of all of those poison type Sludge Bombs. With the Ogerpon going for the Follow Me as well, it's just to cover your bases.
That is going to be painful indeed. The Miraidon going for this Dazzling Gleam is going to be able to get the edge onto this Ogerpon and fell it from play. But because the Iron Hand switched in this turn, it's not going to be able to move either and get damage on the board, enabling this Landorus free reign to go for damage. But it's actually going to go for the Earth Power. I love that defensive play, but it's so threatening and intimidating of the Sludge Bomb into this next turn. I guess Iron Hands does have the Fake Out potential, and Regieleki's now joining the field. field, so there could be some speed shenanigans going on here.
There really can, especially because both of these Pokemon are going to be vulnerable to Regieleki being the fastest one on the field. So if you wanted to try to get that spread damage down, you could. Iron Hands does have the option to try to go for a fake out here, but I think it's better to save that potentially in combination with something else. Right now, though, it's also going to be Regieleki going for a Protect. That is a bit of breathing room here for Taran to work with.
I completely agree. And Landorus also going for the Protect. With the Iron Hands that was in play, you don't want to have to worry about who's going to take the fake out if you just go for this defensive option. You know the Miraidon is locked in, thanks to the choice specs for that Dazzling Gleam as well. Now, going into this next turn, the Regieleki could be in a prime position to go for that Electro Web, lower the speed a little bit more, and maybe allow Landorus to get that KO with the Sludge Bomb following up.
But I love what Taran has gone for here, expecting the double protect on the other side. You can bring this Urshifu in, try to go for the Sucker Punch. It's not going to be quite enough to actually get the knockout onto this Landorus just yet. So for this Urshifu's troubles, it's going to have to hope that that Sucker Punch damage is enough, as it does get knocked out to this Electro Web. But with that -1 speed drop, it's going to mean that this Landorus is also faster now. So the Sludge Bomb into this Terra Fairy Miraidon is going to be super effective.
The synergy between those two Pokemon on Navjit's side, getting the drop, enabling the Landorus to have the edge, is able to get the knockout. And now Taran down to just the Iron Hands in the back, but that's such a difficult spot. It doesn't have a lot of HP, and we also know that, you know, anything coming out from that Landorus, even just the Earth Power, is going to get the knockout.
Yeah, and especially, like, yes, you could go for the fake out, but with the sliver of HP, I think it is just all that is going to happen in this game. So now Taran gets a chance to take a second.
Yes.
What happened in that game number 1? Reflect. What can you do to move forward into this second game? Because you're not out of it yet.
I'm going to be honest, if I was Taran, and you can see he is really taking these seconds to think things through, like you said, Rosemary, I would drop the Whimsicott. Because the Whimsicott, I feel like you need that either early doors to get the Tailwind set up and already get momentum, go on the offensive from the beginning, or it's there to do an offensive role. And it wasn't playing that in this game. It switched in at one point, took double damage, got knocked out, and I feel like you would be more utilized with something on this field that can deal a little bit more damage out there. The Ogerpon, maybe. I would say the Ogerpon could be nice because you have that support as well with Follow Me. You can deal, you know, some good damage with the Ivy Cudgel into threats like the Regieleki as well. There's a lot of potential here for that supportive role that Whimsicott was failing to provide in this game.
And you can do some neutral damage to that Landorus.
Yes, that's true.
So that would be very great. I love the call out there for the Follow Me as well. So maybe that is going to be the play. I think Taran did get a bit surprised in how much damage that Whimsicott ended up taking.
Yes, that's true.
Or even just the targeting. So maybe just in a different position could also work there for that Pokemon.
I've said this before as well. It's not just about the 4 Pokemon on the field you've got to face. It's also the player. And sometimes it's not just about reading the board state. It's reading the way the player is playing the game. So Taran may be analyzing how Navjit was able to play that and seeing how he can adapt accordingly. He does fail the Landorus for good measure. A little bit of redemption there, I suppose. But it does look like the end game is really going to come through to Regieleki, and Navjit still hasn't even revealed the 4th and final Pokemon in the back. So there's a lot of momentum here. Regieleki says, you're not even going to see it anyway. I'm getting the KO, I'm knocking it out, and we're going to game 2.
Would have been maybe some nice information, though. If Taran was able to get there and actually see that 4th and final Pokemon, gives a little bit of a glimmer into how Navjit wanted to navigate the end game.
Yes.
Had it progressed even further. But for this best of 3, Navjit is going to go up 1-0 in this set. One more win for Navjit means that he gets a chance to move on to the top 16 of the Pokemon World Championships.
Top 16. That not only is such an achievement in itself, it also means you unlock that prize money as well. So much on the line for both of these players. Taran, you can see, taking that damage, was not happy to see the Whimsicott go down, and that definitely put a thorn in his side for his strategy.
I do wonder, too, you know, you talk about the Terra that ended up happening here on the Miraidon as we see in front of us, but because of that Terra Poison on the Landorus, if you expect that that's going to be a big factor in this next game, did you see the survival of that Cornerstone Ogerpon from that Wicked Blow?
Yes.
What if you Terra'd? You have Terra Dark on this Pokemon. It would amplify that damage tremendously.
I think as well, the Urshifu there, you know, failing to get the KO with the Sucker Punch onto the Landorus as well, could have benefited from that extra boost to the Dark type. You can understand why Miraidon has it on here. You know, it gives you some nice coverage if potentially that Calyrex Ice Rider was in the back. And I think we can assume that it was. And Taran did have to cover for that for the endgame, as well as boosting up the Dazzling Gleam. But I think you're right, making sure that Urshifu can get those KOs. And if you keep the speed up, if you can remove Regieleki, for example, and allow your Miraidon to shine without the fear of the Electro Web, then maybe you don't need the Terra on their Miraidon.
what if you also consider bringing up Whimsicott maybe a bit more in the front? I think
Front and center, yes.
Yeah, you just go for the tailwind right away. I still think that Taran's approach to it in that game number 1 was okay. If you're able to get a good pivot in there, you do have Pokemon that are able to do that. Miraidon with the Volt Switch is definitely one way that you can accomplish that, but I think it has to be done seamlessly. There were a couple hiccups in there that did make that play just a little bit more easily punished.
Well, I think if Taran had been able to get the Whimsicott on, even if it just hangs on by a slither of HP,
yes,
you know you're clicking Tailwind in that next turn, and that really does swing the momentum. So let's see how Game 2 shakes up between these two players in Masters Top Card at the Pokemon World Championships. Iron Hands and Urshifu on the field for Taran versus the very happy to be here Regieleki with Landorus on Navjit's side.
Landorus was so effective for Navjit in that very first game that it's no wonder why it is going to be brought as a lead front and center for this game number 2. Next to this Regieleki as well, you have the opportunity, if you see the right things in front of you, once again, go for those Electro Webs. You can still do a ton of damage to this Urshifu as well. We saw that Thunderbolt actually do about 2/3 damage to that Urshifu.
It did a significant chunk, even though it is the single strike variant. But Regieleki getting out of here does not want to have to take the potential fake out and a follow-up. It is a very fast and offensive Pokemon, but a little frail, and you don't want to have to take a wicked blow. Iron Hands is going for the fake out, though, but to no avail. There is the Armatail Farigiraf on the field here, so it cannot find its mark, and Landorus free to Sandstone Storm all day long.
Oh, and if it wasn't for that Focus Sash, you know, this Urshifu would definitely be hanging on. Naturally is able to do that, but at the very least, you do get this damage down into this Farigiraf. You get the KO, so big deal here that you remove that Armatail from play, but to what cost?
That's the thing. You do take a little bit of damage, but I think the key thing was you catch it on, at least you brought it down a Pokemon early doors. You now have the Calyrex coming in here. You can apply some pressure. If you are that kind of faster Urshifu as well, having the flexibility to shake things up, you can always go for the close combat down into that slot. Having a look at what the Calyrex, it is running the Water Terror type. That would be a nice defensive play for it at this point in hand, but then you have to watch out for the Iron Hands. That could go for something like, oh, actually, it's not even running an electric type move, so forgive me, the Water Terror, maybe not beneficial to Calyrex at all.
No, the low kick, though, a really nice adjustment here on the Iron Hands to deal with something like the Ice Rider Calyrex or any of these other heavier Pokemon. But the fact that you're not able to land that fake out in the Landorus and you've taken so much damage now, the trade is huge.
Yes.
Now this Ice Rider Calyrex gets a chance to come in for free. Your Urshifu is on its last legs of life, and Taran's going to have to figure out what you can do in the back. The Sucker Punch, though, is good. It's still going to do about half damage here, but you're taking another Sandsear Storm, which just gets a double knockout onto the Iron Hands of the Urshifu. Navjit is starting to run away with this game.
Yeah, Taran does not look happy at that play at all. You could see the seconds were turning down as well, so maybe it was just a little bit of a hesitation in what moves he decided to lock in, and Calyrex actually just being given the free reign to go for a Trick Room here. I was almost going to say it's kind of sad that Calyrex didn't get the double KO there for the 2 chilling Nade boost, but actually it doesn't need that. It's got the Trick Room up, and when you see what Taran has in the back, this is going to be a Calyrex Glacial Lance party out here.
It is. I mean, absolutely devastating for these two Pokemon. The Glacial Lance is going to be so effective, and the fact that this Ice Rider Calyrex has also set up the Trick Room, it is going to end up being the fastest thing on the field. No more Tailwind to really help to control these speeds here for the Miraidon, but there is maybe one hope. Lou, you were pointing at it. Let's talk about it. There is Encore available on this Whimsicott.
That's the only way to kind of reverse the Trick Room at this point, Encore down into it, but then you cannot underestimate this Landorus. Landorus can go for something like the Sludge Bomb, get some good damage onto the opposing Whimsicott. You could also go for the Earth Power or even the Sandsear Storm and do damage to the opposing Miraidon. I think it's wise to switch out the Calyrex here as well, because then you know you cannot be Encored here. Trick Room is going to stay up, and I've never really seen a Regieleki come into a Trick Room environment before, but the key thing was to keep Trick Room up, because if Regieleki goes down, that's actually nice for Navjit. You then have the free switch to bring that Calyrex back in, where it doesn't have to worry about Encore potential.
Yeah, that is the big value from this Regieleki, is absolutely just get this Ice Rider Calyrex out of there, knowing that it's just used the Trick Room. And it might just be a sacrifice of this Regieleki, because I don't think Navjit thinks we are going to get past these Trick Room turns right now. It's going to be a Terastallization on both sides, as we see the Landorus take the Terra Poison and the Miraidon take the Terra Fairy. This is a familiar place that we've seen before, but the Encore into the Landorus does mean that it's going to get locked into what it used the turn prior. Sandsear Storm coming back out into both. Miraidon is is able to hang on thanks to terrestrializing away from that electric typing, but it does have to take a critical hit.
The critical hit's really unfortunate because that was a nice play by Taran, not falling for the on-call bait into the Trick Room, instead stopping a Sludge Bomb from coming out, which was critical considering you got 2 fairy types on the field. The issue, however, Regieleki is hanging on. That Landorus is still in the position to go for another Sandsear Storm. It's not going to be able to get the KO on Whimsicott, but thanks to the crit before, Miraidon is in the danger zone.
Miraidon is in the danger zone. This light screen, kind of like the last saving grace here. One of the nice tech moves from the Whimsicott nowadays, just to be able to help bolster up his special defenses, but it's just not enough to allow this Miraidon to hang on. It is all down to this Whimsicott in the face of this Regieleki, and Navjit is just one knockout away from being able to move on to the top 16 of the Pokemon World Championships.
Regieleki just going for the Electro Web, finding its mark on that Whimsicott. Not enough to be able to clean out this set quite yet. I think that is going to be Landorus's moment here. Oh no, Taran saying, nope, Landorus, you've had enough. Go back to your Pokeball. I'm conceding this game. And Navjit Joshi is going to be advancing into top 16 at the Pokemon World Championships.
Wow, what a display. The Regieleki, one of the most unique choices that we see in our top cut for our Masters division. And it was just a fantastic display of why it has been so successful in the tournament so far. A lot of these trainers that we've seen with their team building have started to think about ways that they're able to use their opponent's Pokemon against them. I think Regieleki is absolutely one of those.
I think you made this call earlier as well when we saw the Imprison on the Calyrex Ice Rider in one of our previous games, because you're seeing a lot of trainers kind of saying, this is what my opponent is running, this is the strategy they want to go for.